Sarah Martinez never imagined that her job as a museum security guard would change her life forever. Working at the National Heritage Museum in downtown Chicago, she spent her days watching over priceless artifacts and ancient treasures. Most visitors barely noticed her standing quietly in the corner. But Sarah noticed everything. It was a cold Tuesday morning in March when everything began. Sarah arrived at work earlier than usual, finding the museum still wrapped in morning silence. As she walked through the Egyptian wing, checking that everything was in place, she noticed something odd. The glass case containing the crown of Empress Helena seemed different somehow. The lighting looked strange, and there were tiny scratches around the lock that definitely weren't there yesterday. Sarah had been working at the museum for 8 years. She knew every corner, every display, and every shadow. Her attention to detail had earned her the respect of her colleagues and supervisors. Dr. William Harrington, the museum director, often praised her dedication. But today, something felt wrong. She called her supervisor, Marcus, over the radio. "I need you to check the Helena crown display," she whispered. "Something's not right here." Marcus arrived within minutes, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls. He was a tall man with graying hair who had worked museum security for over 20 years. "What are you seeing, Sarah?" Marcus asked, adjusting his glasses as he examined the display case. Sarah pointed to the scratches around the lock and the unusual positioning of the crown. "Look at how the light hits it differently today. And these marks here, they're fresh." Marcus studied the case carefully. His face grew serious as he noticed what Sarah had spotted. "We need to call Dr. Harrington immediately," he said, reaching for his phone. "And don't let anyone near this display until he gets here." Within an hour, Dr. Harrington arrived with 2 other museum officials and a security expert. They examined the case thoroughly, taking photographs and measurements. Sarah watched nervously as they worked, wondering if she had made the right call. "Sarah, you may have prevented a major theft," Dr. Harrington said finally. "These scratches indicate someone attempted to break into this case last night. The crown of Empress Helena is worth over $12 million. The revelation sent chills down Sarah's spine. Someone had tried to steal one of the museum's most valuable pieces right under their noses. But how had they gotten past all the security systems? The museum had cameras, motion sensors, and guards patrolling all night. Detective James Rodriguez from the Chicago Police Department arrived to investigate. He was an experienced officer who specialized in art theft cases. "This looks like the work of professionals," he told Sarah and the museum staff. They knew exactly what they were doing, but something spooked them before they could complete the job. As the day progressed, more details emerged. The security cameras from the previous night showed nothing unusual. The motion sensors hadn't been triggered. It was as if whoever tried to break into the case had simply vanished into thin air. But Sarah's keen eye had caught what the technology missed. "I want you to know," Detective Rodriguez told Sarah privately, "that your quick thinking today probably saved this museum millions of dollars and preserved an irreplaceable piece of history. But I need to warn you about something." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "Professional art thieves don't give up easily," the detective explained. "If they were after that crown specifically, they'll likely try again. They might also try to eliminate anyone who could identify them or their methods." The warning hung heavy in the air. Sarah had always thought of her job as quiet and safe. She watched over beautiful things and helped visitors learn about history. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined she might be in danger because of her work. Dr. Harrington called a staff meeting that afternoon. He praised Sarah's vigilance, but also shared Detective Rodriguez's concerns. "We're increasing security immediately," he announced. "Additional guards, more cameras, and new alarm systems. But I want everyone to be extra careful, especially Sarah." Sarah walked to her car that evening. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. The parking garage felt darker than usual, and every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat. She fumbled with her keys, her hands trembling slightly as she unlocked her car door. The drive home took her through the busy streets of Chicago. But even surrounded by traffic and lights, Sarah felt isolated and vulnerable. She kept checking her rearview mirror, looking for cars that might be following her. Every turn she made, every stoplight she waited at, felt like a potential danger. At home in her small apartment, Sarah double-checked all the locks and closed every curtain. She had lived alone for 3 years and never felt unsafe, but tonight was different. Tonight, she realized that her simple life as a museum guard had become complicated in ways she never expected. Her phone rang, making her jump. It was her sister, Maria, calling from California. "You sound stressed," Maria said after they exchanged greetings. "Is everything okay at work?" Sarah wanted to tell her sister everything, but Detective Rodriguez had asked her to keep the details confidential while the investigation continued. "Just a long day," Sarah replied. "Nothing I can't handle." But as she hung up the phone and prepared for bed, Sarah wondered if that was really true. Could she handle what was coming next? The Royal Guard's warning echoed in her mind. Professional. Thieves don't give up easily. They might try to eliminate anyone who could identify them. Looking out her bedroom window at the city lights below, Sarah made a decision. She wouldn't let fear control her life. She had done the right thing by reporting what she saw. She would continue to do her job with the same dedication that had served her well for 8 years. What Sarah didn't know was that across the city, in a luxury hotel suite, 3 people were planning their next move. They had photographs of her, knew where she lived, and were very unhappy that their carefully planned heist had been discovered. The crown of Empress Helena was still their target, and Sarah Martinez had just become their biggest obstacle. The next morning brought unexpected visitors to Sarah's apartment. She was getting ready for work when her doorbell rang at 7:30. Through the peephole, she saw 2 people in expensive suits standing in the hallway. The woman had short, blonde hair and carried a leather briefcase. The man was tall, with dark hair, and wore sunglasses, despite being indoors. "Miss Martinez," the woman said, when Sarah opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock in place. "My name is Victoria Sterling, and this is my associate, David Chen. We're from International Heritage Insurance. We need to speak with you about yesterday's incident at the museum." Sarah hesitated. Detective Rodriguez hadn't mentioned anything about insurance investigators. "Can you show me some identification?" she asked. Both visitors produced official-looking badges and business cards. Victoria Sterling smiled warmly. "We understand your caution, Miss Martinez. What you discovered yesterday was very significant. We'd like to offer you our protection and assistance." Against her better judgment, Sarah let them in. Her apartment suddenly felt very small with these 2 sophisticated strangers standing in her living room. Victoria sat on the couch while David remained standing by the window, occasionally glancing at the street below. "The crown of Empress Helena is insured by our company for $15 million, Victoria explained, opening her briefcase. "We have reason to believe that the people who attempted to steal it are part of an international crime syndicate. They've successfully stolen artifacts from museums in London, Paris, and Tokyo." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What does this have to do with me?" David spoke for the first time, his voice deep and serious. "They know who you are, Miss Martinez. We've been tracking this group for 2 years. They don't leave witnesses, and they don't leave loose ends." Victoria pulled out a tablet and showed Sarah photographs of museum thefts from around the world. Each crime scene looked similar to what Sarah had observed the previous day. "This group calls themselves the Shadow Collectors," Victoria continued. "They steal priceless artifacts for private buyers who want to own pieces of history that can never be displayed publicly." The photographs were disturbing. Sarah saw images of destroyed security systems, unconscious guards, an empty display cases. In one photo from a museum in Rome, she noticed something that made her gasp. Scratches around a lock that looked exactly like the one she had found on the Helena crown case. "We want to offer you protection," Victoria said. "We have a safe house where you can stay until we catch these criminals. We also have a reward of $200,000 for information leading to their arrest." The amount of money was staggering. Sarah made $35,000 a year at the museum. $200,000 would change her life completely. She could pay off her student loans, help her parents with their mortgage, maybe even go back to school to get the art history degree she had always wanted. But something felt wrong about the whole situation. Why didn't Detective Rodriguez tell me about you? Sarah asked. He's investigating the case too. David and Victoria exchanged a quick glance. Local police often don't communicate well with international insurance investigators, Victoria explained smoothly. We work with Interpol and private security firms. Our methods are different. Sarah's phone rang. It was Marcus from the museum, asking why she hadn't come to work yet. She looked at the clock and realized she was already 30 minutes late. I need to go to work, she told her visitors. That's not safe, David said firmly. The shadow collectors are watching the museum. They're waiting for another opportunity. Sarah had made up her mind. I can't hide in a safe house. I have responsibilities. If these criminals are as dangerous as you say, then the museum needs extra protection, not fewer guards. Victoria's friendly demeanor shifted slightly. Miss Martinez, you're not understanding. The severity of this situation, as people have killed security guards in other cities, you're in real danger. Then why haven't you contacted the Chicago police? Sarah asked. Why are you here alone, trying to convince me to disappear? Question hung in the air uncomfortably. David stepped closer to the window, his hand moving inside his jacket. Sarah noticed the movement and felt her heart rate increase. Something was definitely wrong. We need to go, Victoria said, standing up and closing her briefcase. Think about our offer, Miss Martinez. $200,000 and guaranteed safety, but don't take too long to decide. The shadow collectors won't wait forever. After they left, Sarah immediately called Detective Rodriguez. His phone went straight to voicemail. She tried the museum and spoke to Dr. Harrington, describing her. Morning visitors? His response surprised her. Sarah, I've never heard of International Heritage Insurance, Dr. Harrington said. Our museum's artifacts are insured by Worldwide Cultural Protection Services. I'm calling Detective Rodriguez right now. 20 minutes later, Detective Rodriguez called Sarah back. His voice was tense. Where are you right now? Are you safe? I'm at home, she replied. Why? What's wrong?
No.
Those people who visited. You this morning aren't insurance investigators, the detective said. I've been checking with insurance companies all morning. International Heritage Insurance doesn't exist. You were just visited by criminals, possibly the same ones who tried to steal the crown. Sarah felt the room spinning around her. The friendly woman with the briefcase and the serious man by the window weren't there to help her. They were part of the group trying to steal the crown. They had been in her apartment, knew where she lived, and had tried to convince her to go with them to a safe house. I need you to pack a bag and meet me at the police station immediately, Detective. Rodriguez continued. Don't go to work today. Don't go anywhere alone. These people are more dangerous than we initially thought. As Sarah quickly threw clothes into a suitcase, her mind raced with questions. How had they found her so quickly? How did they know exactly what she had discovered at the museum? Most importantly, what did they really want with her? Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The reward offer still stands, Miss Martinez. $200,000 for your cooperation. Think carefully about your next move. Sarah stared at the message, her hands shaking. These criminals weren't just after the crown anymore. They wanted something from her, and they were willing to pay handsomely for it. But what could a simple museum security guard possibly have that international art thieves would want? Grabbed her car keys and headed for the door, Sarah realized that her quiet life was over. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the peaceful days of watching over artifacts and helping museum visitors. She was now part of something much bigger and much more dangerous than she had ever imagined. At the police station, Detective Rodriguez introduced Sarah to Agent Patricia Wells from the FBI Art Crime Team. Agent Wells was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who had been tracking international art theft rings for 15 years. Carefully as Sarah described her encounter with the fake insurance investigators, "You're lucky you didn't go with them," Agent Wells said. "We've been hunting this group for 3 years. They've stolen over $60 million worth of art and artifacts. The people who visited you this morning are Elena Kozlov and Marcus Tang, two of the most wanted art thieves in the world." Sarah felt sick to her stomach. She had been alone in her apartment with international criminals, completely unaware of the danger she was in. "What do they want with me?" she asked. Agent Wells pulled out a thick file and spread photographs across the conference table. "That's what we're trying to figure out. Based on our investigation, We believe they need something specific from the museum to complete their theft. Something only someone with inside access could provide. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward. Sarah, I need you to think carefully about everything you saw at the museum. Was there anything unusual besides the scratches on the crown case? Any small detail that might seem unimportant? Sarah closed her eyes, trying to remember every moment from that Tuesday morning. She had walked through the Egyptian wing as she always did, checking each display. The lighting had seemed different on the crown case, and there were the scratches around the lock. But was there something else? Wait, Sarah said suddenly. There was something else. When I first looked at the crown case, I noticed that the information placard next to it was slightly crooked. I thought maybe a visitor had bumped into it the day before. But now that I think about it, the placard looked like it had been removed and put back. Agent Wells and Detective Rodriguez exchanged meaningful looks. Can you describe exactly what was on that placard? Agent Wells asked. It had basic information about the crown, Sarah replied. When it was made, who wore it, how the museum acquired it, but there was also technical information about the materials used and the construction methods. That's it, Agent Wells said, standing up excitedly. They needed the technical specifications. Professional art thieves often need detailed information about how pieces are constructed so they can create perfect forgeries to replace the originals during theft. Detective Rodriguez nodded. If they can create a convincing fake crown and swap it during the theft, the museum might not realize the real crown is missing for weeks or even months. By then, the thieves would be long gone. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and fear. Her attention to detail had not only prevented a theft, but it also uncovered a sophisticated criminal operation. But it also meant that she was now a target for some of the world's most dangerous art thieves. We need your help, Agent Wells said. These criminals are planning to try again, and we want to be ready for them. Would you be willing to work with us as an undercover informant? The request hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. You want me to go back to work and pretend nothing happened? While international criminals are watching me? We'll have agents protecting you at all times, Detective Rodriguez assured her. You'll never be alone, and you'll have a direct communication line to our tactical team. But we need someone inside the museum who can spot things that our agents might miss. Agent Wells opened another file. Sarah, this crime syndicate has stolen priceless artifacts from 12 different countries. They've attacked security guards, threatened museum staff, and even kidnapped an art historian in France. If we don't stop them now, they'll continue terrorizing museums around the world. The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders. She thought about her colleagues at the museum, about Dr. Harrington, who had always been kind to her, about the millions of visitors who came to see these beautiful pieces of history. Could she really hide while criminals threatened everything she cared about? What would I have to do? Sarah asked quietly. Return to your normal routine, Agent Wells explained. Go to work, do your job, but watch for anything unusual, we believe. They'll make their move within the next few days. They know the museum is on high alert, so they'll need to act quickly before security measures become too tight. Detective Rodriguez handed Sarah a small device that looked like a regular pen. This is a panic button. Press the top 3 times rapidly, and our tactical team will be at your location within 2 minutes. It also has a listening device, so we can monitor your conversations. Sarah took the pen with trembling hands. What if they try to hurt me? They won't, Agent Wells said confidently. You're more valuable to them alive than dead. They still need information from you, and they know. That harming you would bring down the full force of federal law enforcement. That evening, Sarah returned to her apartment with a police escort. Detective Rodriguez had arranged for plainclothes officers to watch her building 24 hours a day. As she walked through her living room, she couldn't stop thinking about how Alina Kozlov and Marcus Tang had sat on her couch just hours earlier. Her phone rang at 9 o'clock. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but Sarah recognized Victoria Sterling's voice immediately. Miss Martinez, I hope you've had time to think about our offer. $200,000 is a lot of money for a museum security guard. Sarah's heart pounded, but she remembered Agent Wells' instructions. Keep them talking. Get as much information as possible. I'm interested, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. But I need to know more about what you want me to do. Smart girl. Elena's voice purred through the phone. We need access to the museum's security system. Specifically, we need the override codes for the Egyptian wing. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The override codes could disable all the alarms and cameras. In that section of the museum, with those codes, the thieves could walk in and take the crown without triggering a single security measure. I don't have access to those codes, Sarah lied. The truth was that senior security guards like Marcus did have access to override codes. In case of emergencies? But you know someone who does, Alina continued. Marcus Williams, your supervisor. He trusts you. You could get the codes from him. The realization hit Sarah like a lightning bolt. They weren't just planning to steal the crown. They were planning to frame Marcus for the theft by using his security codes. A man who had dedicated 20 years of his life to protecting the museum would be destroyed by these criminals. I need time to think about this, Sarah said. You have until tomorrow night, Alina replied. Meet us at Millennium Park at midnight. Come alone, or the deal is off. And Miss Martinez. Don't try to involve the police. We'll know if you do. After. Alina hung up. Sarah immediately called Agent Wells. They want me to steal security codes from my supervisor, she reported. They're planning to frame him for the theft. Perfect, Agent Wells replied. This gives us exactly what we need to catch them. Tomorrow night, we'll be ready. But as Sarah prepared for bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Alina and Marcus Tang were sophisticated international criminals. They really be caught so easily? Or were they setting up a trap of their own? Looking out her bedroom window at the police car parked across the street, Sarah wondered if tomorrow night would bring justice or disaster. Either way, her life is... A quiet museum security guard was about to end forever. The next day at the museum felt like walking through a minefield. Sarah tried to act normally, but she was constantly aware of the FBI agents positioned throughout the building disguised as visitors and maintenance workers. Agent Wells had briefed her on the plan. They would let the meeting at Millennium Park proceed, but with full surveillance and backup ready to move in. Marcus noticed Sarah's nervousness during their morning briefing. You've seemed on edge since yesterday, he said. With genuine concern, is everything okay? I know discovering that attempted break-in was stressful. Sarah felt terrible lying to Marcus, but she had no choice. I'm fine, she said, just worried about security. Do you think they'll try again? I doubt it, Marcus replied. Dr. Harrington has tripled our security measures. We've got new cameras, additional guards, and I've changed all the access codes. No one's getting past our defenses now. At the mention of changed access codes made Sarah's heart race. If Alina and Marcus Tang wanted the override codes, and Marcus had just changed them, then tonight's meeting could be even more dangerous than expected. Criminals didn't like surprises, especially when millions of dollars were at stake. At lunch, Sarah met secretly with Agent Wells in the museum cafeteria. The supervisor changed all the security codes this morning, Sarah whispered. What if the thieves get angry when they find out I can't deliver what they want? It might work in our favor, Agent Wells replied quietly. Desperate criminals make mistakes. But we'll have sharpshooters positioned around the park, and Detective Rodriguez will be close enough to intervene if anything goes wrong. The rest of the day dragged by slowly. Sarah found herself jumping at every sound, analyzing every visitor who came through the Egyptian wing. Was that tourist really taking pictures of the displays, or was he scouting for the theft? Was that woman asking questions about museum security really a curious visitor, or another member of the criminal organization? At closing time, Dr. Harrington called Sarah into his office. I want you to know how proud I am of your vigilance, he said. Because of your sharp eyes, we've prevented what could have been a devastating loss for this museum and for history itself. Sarah nodded, wishing she could tell him about the danger that was still approaching. Just doing my job, Dr. Harrington. We'll keep doing it exactly as you have been, he replied. The board of directors is so impressed that they're considering you for a promotion to head of security when Marcus retires next year. The irony was overwhelming. Here she was, being praised for protecting the museum while secretly planning to meet with the very criminals who wanted to rob it. If tonight went wrong, her career would be over, and she might not even survive to care about promotions. That evening, Sarah prepared for the meeting with careful attention to the FBI's instructions. She wore a wire transmitter hidden in her jacket and carried the panic button pen in her pocket. Agent Wells had given her a special purse with a built-in GPS tracker and a tiny camera that would record everything. As she drove toward Millennium Park, Sarah's phone rang. It was her sister Maria calling from California. "Hi, Sarah. Just wanted to check on you. You sounded so stressed yesterday." Sarah almost broke down crying. What if this was the last time she ever spoke to her sister? What if something went wrong tonight and she never got to see her family again? "I'm okay, Maria. I love you. I love you too," Maria replied. "You sound strange. Are you sure everything's all right?" "Everything's going to be fine," Sarah lied. "I'll call you tomorrow." Millennium Park at night was eerily beautiful. The city lights reflected off the Cloud Gate sculpture, and couples walked hand in hand along the illuminated pathways. Sarah had visited this park dozens of times, but tonight it felt like a foreign landscape full of hidden dangers. She arrived at the designated meeting spot 5 minutes early. Agent Wells had instructed her to appear eager and cooperative, but not too eager, which might seem suspicious. Sarah sat on a bench near the Crown Fountain, trying to look like someone contemplating a life-changing decision. Alina Kozlov appeared first, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. She still looked like a sophisticated businesswoman, but in the dim park lighting, there was something predatory about her smile. "Miss Martinez, I'm glad you came. Do you have what we discussed?" "There's a problem," Sarah said, following the script Agent Wells had prepared. "My supervisor changed all the security codes this morning. I can't get the current ones without raising suspicion." Elena's friendly expression vanished instantly. "It's very unfortunate, Miss Martinez. My associates don't like complications." Marcus Tang stepped out from behind a tree, and Sarah noticed. He was no longer trying to look like a respectable businessman. His jacket was open, revealing what looked like a weapon in a shoulder holster. 2 other men appeared from different directions, effectively surrounding Sarah on the bench. "We invested considerable time and resources in this operation," Alina continued. "Can't simply walk away because of a minor setback." Sarah's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I can still help you. I know the museum's layout better than anyone. I know when the guards change shifts, which cameras have blind spots, and how to move through the building without being detected." Alina and Marcus exchanged glances. One of the other men spoke for the first time, his accent suggesting he might be Eastern European. "She's more valuable as an inside accomplice than as an informant. We proceed with the original plan, but she guides us through the building." "That wasn't our agreement," Sarah protested, genuinely afraid now.
Said I.
"Just needed to get you the codes." "Plans change," Alina said coldly. "You'll meet us tomorrow night at the museum's service entrance at 2 a.m. You'll disable the alarms in the Egyptian wing and guide us to the crown. Once we have it, you'll receive your payment and can disappear." Marcus Tang stepped closer, his hand resting casually on his jacket. "And if you're thinking about involving the police, remember that we know where you live, where your sister lives in California, and where your parents live in Milwaukee. Cooperation ensures everyone's safety." The threat against her family sent ice through Sarah's veins. These criminals had done their research thoroughly. They knew exactly how to control her. "I understand," she said quietly. "Excellent," Elena smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "Tomorrow night, Miss Martinez, don't disappoint us." As the criminals melted back into the shadows of the park, Sarah sat alone on the bench, shaking. She pressed the panic button pen 3 times, and within minutes, FBI agents surrounded the area. But the thieves were gone, vanished as completely as if they had never been there. Agent Wells approached Sarah with a grim expression. "We recorded everything, but they were too smart to say anything incriminating. They were forcing you to become an active participant in the theft." "They threatened my family," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "They know where my parents and sister live." "We're sending protection to your family immediately," Agent Wells assured her. "But Sarah, we need you to go through with tomorrow night's meeting. It's our only chance to catch them in the act." Sarah looked up at the agent with disbelief. "Want me to actually help them steal the crown?" "We want you to lead them into a trap," Agent Wells replied. "Tomorrow night, the National Heritage Museum will be filled with federal agents. We'll We'll catch these criminals once and for all. But as Sarah drove home, she couldn't shake the feeling that Alina and Marcus Tang were too sophisticated to walk into such an obvious trap. If they suspected anything, tomorrow night could turn into a deadly confrontation with her caught in the middle. The day of the planned heist dawned gray and rainy, matching Sarah's mood perfectly. She had barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling and wondering if she would survive the next 24 hours. Agent Wells had called twice to check on her mental state, and Detective Rodriguez had stopped by with coffee and reassurance. But nothing could calm the fear growing in her chest. At the museum, Sarah tried to maintain her normal routine, but everything felt different. Knowing that tonight she would lead criminals through these familiar halls made every corner seem threatening. The crown of Empress Helena sat in its case, beautiful and innocent, unaware that it had become the center of an international criminal conspiracy. Dr. Harrington pulled Sarah aside during her lunch break. "I've been watching you today," he said. "With concern, you seem incredibly tense. Is there something you need to tell me?" Sarah wanted desperately to confess everything, but Agent Wells had been clear about maintaining operational security. "I guess I'm still shaken up about the attempted break-in," she lied. "I keep thinking about what could have happened." "Sarah, you're one of our most dedicated employees," Dr. Harrington said kindly. "But if this job is becoming too stressful, we can arrange for you to transfer to a different department. Maybe our research division would be less nerve-wracking." The offer was tempting, but Sarah knew there was no escaping now. Alina and Marcus Tang had made it clear that her family's safety depended on her cooperation. "I'll be fine," she assured her boss. "This will all be over soon." Those words proved more prophetic than she realized. That afternoon, Agent Wells briefed Sarah on the final details of the operation. "We have 30 federal agents positioned throughout the museum," she explained. "They're hidden in storage areas, maintenance rooms, and even inside some of the larger display cases. The moment the criminals enter the building, they'll be surrounded." Sarah studied the museum floor plan that Agent Wells had marked with red X's showing agent positions. What if they detect the agents? What if they realize it's a trap? "They won't," Agent Wells said confidently. "But these agents are trained too. Blend in perfectly. Alina and Marcus Tang will never see them coming." But Sarah wasn't convinced. These criminals have successfully robbed museums in 12 different countries. They must be experts at detecting security measures. Detective Rodriguez joined the conversation. "Sarah, I understand your concerns, but we've planned this operation carefully. We've studied their methods from previous thefts, and we know how they operate. Tonight, we end their crime spree." As evening approached, Sarah felt increasingly isolated despite being surrounded by law enforcement. She was the bait in a trap that could spring shut on her as easily as on the criminals. If shooting started, she would be caught in the crossfire. With nowhere to run, at 11 p.m., she received a text message from Alina. "Service entrance, 15 minutes early. Come alone." Sarah showed the message to Agent Wells, who frowned. "They're changing the timeline. It suggests they might be." "Suspicious? Should we call off the operation?" Sarah asked hopefully. "No," Agent Wells replied firmly. "This is our chance. Go to the service entrance as planned. We'll be watching." The walk through the empty museum to the service entrance felt like a funeral march. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the dark hallways, and every shadow seemed to hide potential danger. She carried her keys with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and the panic button pen felt heavy in her pocket. Alina was waiting at the service entrance with Marcus Tang and 2 other men Sarah hadn't seen before. All 4 were dressed in black and moved with the silent efficiency of professional criminals. Alina smiled when she saw Sarah, but her eyes remained cold and calculating. "Punctual as always, Miss Martinez," Alina said softly. "Are you ready to make history?" Sarah unlocked the service door, her hands trembling as she turned the key. "The alarm system will activate in 30 seconds once I open this door," she lied, following Agent Wells' instructions. "I need to get to the security panel quickly." "Lead the way," Marcus Tang whispered, his hand resting on what Sarah now realized was definitely a weapon. As they moved through the museum's service corridors, Sarah tried to spot the hidden FBI agents, but she saw nothing. The agents were either incredibly well hidden or something had gone wrong with the operation. Silence. was broken only by their footsteps and Sarah's rapid heartbeat. They reached the Egyptian wing without incident. Sarah led them to a maintenance panel and pretended to disable the alarm system. Actually doing nothing but pushing random buttons. "The alarms are off," she whispered. "We have maybe 20 minutes before the system runs a diagnostic check." Helena examined the crown of Empress Helena in its display case, her eyes gleaming with professional appreciation. $12 million of ancient craftsmanship, she murmured. "Our buyer will be very pleased." Marcus Tem was already working on the display case, lock with tools that looked far more sophisticated than anything Sarah had ever seen. The lock that was supposed to be impenetrable yielded to his expertise in less than 3 minutes. "Where are the FBI agents?" Sarah thought desperately. "Why hasn't anyone moved in yet?" Alina carefully lifted the crown from its case, handling it with the reverence of someone who truly understood its historical value. "Perfect condition," she said with satisfaction. "This will be our finest acquisition." That's when Sarah heard the sound that changed everything. Footsteps approaching. The museum erupted into chaos as tactical teams stormed through every entrance simultaneously. Sarah had pressed the panic button, but the sirens she heard weren't the result of her signal. Detective Rodriguez had been monitoring the FBI operation. From outside the museum, and when communications suddenly went silent, it called for immediate backup from Chicago SWAT teams. Alina Kozlov's sophisticated composure cracked completely as armed officers surrounded the Egyptian wing. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she snarled, pulling out a pistol. "Marcus, you said the police were contained." Marcus Williams looked as shocked as anyone. His careful planning had accounted for FBI agents, but not for local police acting. "Independently, I disabled their equipment," he stammered. "This shouldn't be possible." "Drop your weapons and surrender immediately," a voice boomed through the museum sound system. Detective Rodriguez was coordinating the response from the security office. Using the museum's own communication system against the criminals, Marcus Tang grabbed Sarah and pulled her up from behind the display case, pressing his gun against her head. "We're leaving with the girl," he shouted to the tactical teams. "Anyone tries to stop us, she dies." But Sarah had spent 8 years learning every inch of this museum. As Marcus Tang dragged her toward what he thought was an exit, Sarah knew he was actually heading toward a dead-end storage room. She had to make a choice: help her captor escape or trust that law enforcement would protect her. "That's not an exit," Sarah said loudly enough for the police to hear. "That hallway leads to the artifact storage room. There's no way out." Marcus Tang cursed and changed direction, but his momentary confusion gave the tactical teams the opening they needed. 2 officers rushed forward while Marcus Tang was distracted, and Detective Rodriguez himself appeared from a side corridor. "Let her go, Thames," Detective Rodriguez called out. "You're surrounded, and there's nowhere to run." Alina still held the crown of Empress Helena, clutching it like a shield. "This crown is worth $12 million, she shouted. "We've come too far to leave empty-handed. You've destroyed too many lives to walk away free," a new voice said from behind her. Agent Wells stepped out of the shadows, her FBI credentials visible and her weapon drawn. "Alina Kozlov, you're under arrest for international art theft, conspiracy, and threatening a federal witness." The revelation that Agent Wells had been in the museum all along shocked everyone, including Sarah. "I thought the FBI agents were trapped in the basement," Sarah said. "Some of them were," Agent Wells replied, keeping her weapon trained on Alina. "But we learned from previous investigations that this criminal organization always has inside help. We suspected Marcus Williams for weeks." Marcus Williams' face went pale. "It's impossible. I was careful. I covered my tracks." "You were careful about hiding your communications with the criminals," Detective Rodriguez said. "But you forgot about the museum's internal security cameras that record employee access to restricted areas. We have footage of you entering areas you had no business being in, always just before these criminals made their moves." Alina looked around desperately, realizing that her escape routes were gone, and her inside man had been exposed. "We had a deal," she said to Marcus Williams. "You promised this would be clean and simple." "I did my part," Marcus Williams replied bitterly. 20 years of loyalty to this museum, and what did it get me? You offered me more money for one job than I made in 5 years of honest work. Sarah felt a mixture of anger and pity for her former supervisor. You betrayed everything you were supposed to protect, she said. These artifacts don't belong to you or to private collectors. They belong to history, to everyone. Spare me the lecture, Marcus Williams snapped. You'll never understand what it's like to work your whole life and have nothing to show for it. I understand exactly what that's like, Sarah replied. The difference is that I chose to protect what I was entrusted with, even when it put my life in danger. Elena made one last desperate move, throwing the crown of Empress Helena toward the ground, hoping to create a distraction in the chaos. But Sarah, with reflexes honed by 8 years of protecting priceless artifacts, dove forward and caught the crown before it could hit the marble floor. The moment Sarah secured the crown, tactical teams moved in from all directions. Elena, Marcus Tang, and their 2 associates were surrounded and arrested without further resistance. Marcus Williams surrendered quietly, his 20-year career ending in handcuffs and shame. Agent Wells helped Sarah to her feet. That was incredibly brave, she said. You risked your life to protect that crown? It's my job, Sarah replied simply. Carefully placing the crown of Empress Helena back in its display case, Detective Rodriguez approached with a smile. Sarah, thanks to your courage and attention to detail, we've not only stopped this theft, but also gathered enough evidence to connect these criminals to art thefts across 3 continents. Interpol agents are already making arrests in London, Paris, and Tokyo. Over the next few hours, as the museum was processed as a crime scene, Sarah learned the full scope of what she had helped prevent. The Shadow Collectors, as Elena's organization called themselves, had stolen over $80 million worth of art and artifacts. They had bribed or blackmailed museum employees in 12 different countries, creating a network of inside accomplices who helped them bypass security systems. Dr. A. Harrington arrived at dawn, shocked to learn about Marcus Williams' betrayal, but overwhelmed with gratitude for Sarah's heroism. I don't know how to thank you, he said. You've saved not just the crown of Empress Helena, but the reputation and future of this entire museum. I just did what felt right, Sarah replied, though she was exhausted from the night's events. The story made international headlines. Museum guard foils international art theft ring appeared in newspapers around the world. Sarah received commendations from the FBI, the Chicago Police Department, and the International Association of Museum Security. But the recognition that meant the most came from her colleagues. The museum's board of directors not only promoted Sarah to head of security, but also established the Sarah Martinez Award for Excellence in Cultural Protection, to be given annually to museum employees who go above and beyond to protect cultural heritage. Elena Kozlov and Marcus Tang were extradited to face charges in multiple countries. Marcus Williams received a lighter sentence in exchange for providing information about other museum employees who had been approached by the criminal organization. His cooperation helped protect several museums from similar infiltration attempts. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the Egyptian wing during her evening rounds, looking at the crown of Empress Helena in its case. The scratches around the lock had been repaired, and new security measures made any future theft attempts virtually impossible. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Maria, saw your interview on the news tonight. I'm so proud of you. Your Sarah. Smiled, thinking about how much her life had changed since that Tuesday morning when she first noticed something was wrong. She had started as a simple museum security guard who noticed details others missed. She had become someone who protected not just artifacts, but the heritage and history they represented, as she completed her rounds and prepared to go home. Sarah reflected on the choice Elena had offered her that night: disappear with money or stay and fight for what was right. She had chosen to fight, and in doing so, had discovered that sometimes the most ordinary people are capable of extraordinary courage. The crown of Empress Helena would remain safe in its case, watched over by someone who understood that protecting history is one of the most important jobs in the world. And Sarah Martinez, the museum guard, who wouldn't be silenced or bought, would continue to stand guard over the treasures that belonged to all humanity.